Fundraising for Endowments. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz. This is the first day from the fundraising school, and we are thrilled to welcome back Laura MacDonald. She's the principal of Benefactor Group, a fundraising consulting firm that works across the United States, and she also is the author of a new book on endowments for nonprofit organizations. Laura, in the past, has been chair of the Giving USA Foundation. And Laura, what a delight to have you back with us here on the Fundraising Schools podcast.
Thank you, Bill. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
So what is the title of your book and why endowments?
The title of the book is The Endowment Handbook. There's a subtitle that's important to me, and that is that it's the complete guide to building a resilient cause. And I think that answers partially your question, why endowments? Because endowments are one of the ingredients that can help make a nonprofit organization more resilient. A couple of other reasons. One, there really hasn't been a comprehensive how-to book about building endowment published since 2004. And since then, we've had changes to the 990s, changes to the tax code, changes to the economic circumstances, and a significant generational change. And so felt that it was time to update that book. And that was a wonderful book written by my friend and colleague, Diana Newman, who actually gave the intellectual property rights in that book to our firm with the caveat that she expected us to update it. And here we are updating it. Finally, I think that it's a really opportune time for organizations to be thinking about building endowment. As we'll probably be discussing today, endowments are largely built through planned and deferred gifts, estate gifts. And as we know, we are in the midst of an intergenerational transfer of wealth, probably the largest intergenerational transfer of wealth ever recorded. And some estimates would say that about $12 trillion will be passing from baby boomers and older generations to nonprofit organizations in the form of charitable bequests. That's a remarkable opportunity, and one that I hope some of the guidance in the Endowment Handbook will help our listeners and viewers take advantage of.
What is an endowment? Are we talking about a savings account? Is this an operating reserve, or is there something in particular that's specific to endowments?
An endowment is not a reserve. It's not a rainy day fund. And there's a place for reserves and rainy day funds. And in fact, an organization should probably have those in place before they think about building endowments seriously. They're accounted for differently, and those are much more flexible resources. An endowment is really intended to be a financial instrument in which the principal, whatever the original amount of money that was put in, is kept in to grow through investment and over time, with a portion of it drawn out. Typically, that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6%, drawn out annually to fuel activities. Now, legally, there are 3 different kinds of endowment. True endowment happens when a donor makes a gift to your organization and says, I'm giving you this gift, you must use it for endowment. The donor has restricted it, which means it's permanently restricted, and the only thing you can do with that gift is put it in an endowed investment account and leave the principal alone. You can never deplete the original value of the gift, but you can take that annual draw. Quasi-endowment happens when the board votes to put some sort of either extra revenue or a windfall gift, or even in the north, a year without the need to plow snow. And so all of a sudden you've got an excess of revenue. And the board decides, hey, we think the prudent thing to do is to put some of this into our endowment. Now that's a quasi-endowment. An organization is not restricted from eating away at that over time and spending the value of that deposit. But I would caution that they do so at their peril, because this is all going to be recorded on your 990. Donors are going to look at that 990, and they're going to expect to see that the endowment, that there are prudent draws from the endowment, again, 4 to 6% of the total value, but that the principal is left in the account to grow over time. And even though you're allowed to withdraw from your quasi-endowment, those of us in the Midwest might say that you are eating your seed corn.
Laura, when we talk about endowments, you've mentioned the phrase planned giving. People even hear the word endowment and they think, oh, that must be for those 10% or so of nonprofits that are the largest, the universities, the hospitals, the big arts organizations. Are endowments for everybody or just for larger budget nonprofit organizations?
Well, I think they are for everybody, so long as you've reached a level of maturity that A, you've been able to set aside some funds in reserves, and B, you have some long-term relationships with your donors, because endowments are largely created by donors, and not necessarily those who have made the largest gifts to your organization, but oftentimes those who have been loyal over time and made consistent gifts to your organization. Those are the ones who are most likely to include you in their estate plan. Now, there are exceptions to all of this, but I would also say that if you're an organization that has a $5 million a year annual operating budget, and you have an endowment for, let's say, $1 million, well, the draw on that endowment is going to be about $50,000 a year. That makes a difference in a $50 million or $5 million a year organization. If, on the other hand, you're a $50 million annual operating budget and you've got $1 million endowment, that $50,000 becomes a rounding error on your P&L. So I actually think that they are for everyone. That $12 trillion that's going to be distributed through estate gifts in the coming decades, if every organization received an equal share, that would be $8 million each. That is not what will happen. The organizations that prepare for it and talk with their donors about it and do the necessary policy work, they're the ones who will receive the greatest portion of that $12 trillion, as well as current gifts going into their endowment.
So as a fundraiser, how do I fundraise for an endowment? I can think about my annual fund, my major gifts. Maybe we're having a campaign. How do I work with a donor, talk with a donor, listen to a donor along the lines of fundraising for an endowment?
That's a great question, Bill. And I will also defer to the relationship that you have with that donor, because often, that is the work, the good work that we do as development officers is nurture that relationship over time and get to understand what's important to that donor, what they're passionate about. But you're right that the conversation is a more mature conversation, let's say. This is not a solicitation generally that you are going to do on your first visit with a brand new donor. Start talking about endowment. But I think that once somebody has been with your organization for a while, possibly giving treasure, or maybe it's time and talent and testimony, and they've established that relationship and shown that they really care about the organization, then I think you have an opportunity to start asking questions. And really, I think asking questions is the key here, not making statements. Hey, I noticed that you've been supporting the organization for quite a while. Can you tell me more about why you've done that? What are your hopes and dreams for our organization? What would you see us doing in the future that would be meaningful to you? What if I could show you a way that you could help to ensure that we can achieve those hopes and dreams, whether they happen now or happen well beyond our time here on this earth? I think those are the kinds of conversations. It's also an opportunity to talk to a donor. For most donors, they can make the largest gift of their life through some blend of current resources and endowment. So let's say that donor is funding an early learning program, and they're providing a gift of somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 a year as part of raising money for your early learning program. Now, you can be talking to them about how meaningful that is, showing them the outcomes that you have for those students and how well they're performing. But at some point, you can also talk to that person and say, this is a area of our mission that we're absolutely committed to. We believe that we are going to be continuing this early learning program into the future. I wonder if you'd be interested in learning more about how you could make a huge impact on our ability to do this work, both now and in the future, and probably make a larger gift than you ever realized you could.
That is wonderful advice and guidance on our external relations with our donors. And then, Laura, our fundraisers have internal conversations with their chief development officer, their CEO, their board, who are all saying you need to meet your annual fund goal. And now you want to spend time having this conversation about the future, decades from now. How does the fundraiser balance that tension internally?
Well, first of all, I think any organization that wants to go down this path should make sure that there is alignment, that the board, the C-suite, that everybody understands that this has now become an institutional priority. And yes, we are going to devote time and resources to endowment. And the reality is that today's leadership may not realize the benefits of that. It may be a decade or 2 or 4 down the road that this really begins to bear fruit for the organization. But I think every CEO or CDO or CFO is probably thinking to themselves, I wish my predecessors had done this. Mm-hmm. And so I think you have to get that alignment. We've done a lot of work in the YWCA and women funding movement, and they have a saying that is, leaders plant trees whose shade they will never enjoy. So it's really a leadership move. But beyond that, I would say that when a donor makes a commitment to endowment through a current or a planned gift, they are more likely to make an annual gift, and that annual gift is likely to be larger. And so it also can be a strategy for elevating your annual fundraising.
And the research bears that out as we see the opportunities to raise endowment funds from our donors while also working on our annual campaign and our major gifts and our fundraising campaigns. Laura, there's so much great promise and opportunity with endowment fundraising. And like just about anything in life, there are also some criticisms. And, you and I, as we've been doing our fundraising throughout the years, will encounter the donor who says, wait a minute, why is all of this money going into this endowment until the earth ends when we have immediate needs now? And there's even been some of the criticism in the national media. Some of our federal officials take a look at this and go, do you really need all that money just tucked away? How can fundraisers respond to that criticism if they hear that from a donor or a colleague, an external stakeholder who says, why are we putting this money away in the endowment when there are immediate needs now?
Well, you'll be happy to know we go through a whole number of arguments that we hear that are for against endowments and provide some insights as to how they might be handled. But I will say that if a donor does not believe in endowment, don't ask them to give to endowment. There are plenty of things that they can be doing today. And we've seen models. Let's say your organization has decided that we want to create an endowment of $4 million so that we can draw roughly $200,000 a year to fund a particular program. Let's say that in this case, it's an outreach program. Well, to that donor who does not want to give to endowment because they believe outreach needs to happen today, the answer could be, you could make a 4-year pledge to the outreach program or a 5-year pledge to the outreach program. And that will allow the endowment gifts to accrue and mature, and we won't have to start drawing on that endowment now for 5 years. But your support today will get us to that point, to that place. I will say that's particularly effective with corporate and foundation donors who do not want to give to endowment. Generally, corporations and foundations don't give to endowment. It's built almost entirely through gifts from individuals. But if they know that, I can support the outreach program for the next 5 years, and then there's a stream of revenue to sustain it, and I haven't suddenly felt the need to become a perpetual funder of this program. So there are a lot of great ways to have those conversations. I will say, and it was fascinating to do the research for the book and learn about how endowment resources are distributed in America today. It's not equitable. And that's part of the reason for the book as well, is that it's not really focused on the ginormous institution of higher education or health system, although I do think that there are things that they could learn from it. It's really focused on that mid-size or smaller nonprofit for whom endowment might be a bit of a mystery or something that's not in their toolbox yet, and to help them develop the tools to pursue it.
To amplify Laura's point, I recently was part of a fundraising campaign, which included building an endowment for the nonprofit organization. And we had a donor who said, I don't want that money to be locked up in an endowment. I want to meet real needs. And we said, great, because there are other options. We have capital needs you can fund. You can boost your annual gift through the campaign. And that was music to her ears. She was glad to know she had those other options as she participated enthusiastically in the campaign. And, at the fundraising school, we teach that leadership is about seeing your opportunities in their greatest context. Fundraising leadership is about seeing your opportunities in their greatest context. And that includes with endowments. As Laura just emphasized, it's not just the largest universities and largest nonprofits. All nonprofits can think about fundraising for endowments in ways that still can fortify and, as Laura said, even increase our annual fund fundraising, regardless of your subsector, regardless of your budget size, as long as you meet those prerequisites. And Laura mentioned a few of them here, and also they are laid out in great detail in the book. Laura, as we conclude, any other advice that you have for nonprofits and for fundraisers as they get ready to dive into the Endowment Handbook?
Well, first of all, I invite you to this wonderful adventure. As I've said, I believe that it's a very fortuitous time to be thinking about this good work. And I hope that the resources in the book will help you. It's all rooted, though, in relationships. And the second half of the book is really about the donors who fuel endowments, why they give, how they give, some of the considerations for engaging them. And I was really inspired by my colleague, Dr. Russell James, who has taught us so much about the use of the hero story in engaging individual donors and helping them understand the impact that they can have. And he would say that, when you start to talk to somebody about endowment, something that will live on beyond their lifetime, it begins to trigger what's sometimes called mortality aversion. Ooh, I don't want to think about beyond my lifetime. But he would say that now we have a chance to embellish that hero story by making it a perpetual hero. You can help your donors become perpetual heroes by supporting your organization's endowment.
Laura MacDonald is the principal of the Benefactor Group and author of the Endowment Handbook, past chair of the Giving USA Foundation, and a good friend of the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, in which resides the Fundraising School. Laura, great to have you back with us on the Fundraising School's First Day podcast.
Thank you, Bill.
We talk about endowments and principles and techniques of fundraising and our new planned gift management certificate, 3 courses that lead to that certificate. We have 25 courses in all, leading to 5 different certificates. We teach in person in 10 United States cities, and of course online, either recorded or live in the United States or anywhere across the world. Now, we can tailor our curriculum just for your nonprofit, your association, your region, your country, your culture, whatever the case might be. We can customize this training just for you. We also have quarterly webinars and these weekly podcasts, and all of our knowledge is gathered in our textbook, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, now out in the book's 5th edition. Where can you find this? Online at go.iu.edu/TFRS for the Fundraising School. I'm grateful to my colleagues, Mike Anthony, the Emmy Award-winning producer, along with Jennifer Boffman, CFRM. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz, and now you are more fully informed on this first day from the Fundraising School.